Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live literally from somewhere in Alaska. I am sitting in a parking lot in front of the beautiful Hope Elementary using their free internet. And, all things are possible now with the ability of broadband all over Alaska, which is pretty exciting. Thank you for tuning into the Must Read Alaska Show. We have a treat for you today. But first, we want to just thank our listeners. Thank our readers, thank our watchers of all of our epic memes. We appreciate you. And we also appreciate the folks that donate to Must Read Alaska. It's because of you that we exist. All this stuff costs money. So I want to really thank the folks that, donate $1, donate $5, donate $20. We survive off hundreds of folks making small donations every month. And we are pretty excited about that. But I have a special guest today, which is very exciting. He is from the Ketchikan Gateway Borough, and he is Mayor Dial. So Mayor Rodney Dial, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. How's your morning going?
It's going great, John, and I really want to thank you for inviting me to your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're gonna be excited I'm excited to have you on. Our folks are our listeners and watchers and readers are big fans of you. We've done some stories on you and about you, and I think you've done a couple op-eds for us over the last year or so. And man, you are doing an amazing, epic job down in Ketchikan. And so how did you first get involved in politics? Everybody's kind of got their story. And I'd love to hear how you got involved in politics. I know you're a former Alaskan State Trooper, and so I'm sure there's a story there.
Well, first, let me do that standard disclosure to keep myself out of trouble.
Nice.
Everything that I say it's just me. I'm not representing any group or the borough. But to answer your question, I was born and raised in Alaska. I actually grew up in Anchorage. At the age of 17, I joined the Army. I was an airborne ranger with the 2nd 75th Ranger Battalion. Did tours primarily in Central America, Honduras, Panama. I was hired by the state in 1989. I worked the Exxon Valdez oil spill. After that, I was hired as a state trooper in 1990. Transferred about 7 times all over the state, got a chance to see most of the 320 plus communities in the state, which was really good. Really realized that Ketchikan is a great place to live. It's full of doers. I mean, just real positive energy here. And you may remember one of my claims to fame was that here many years ago, I was the department's legislative liaison, and I got a call from one of Palin's staff members, and there was that whole Troopergate thing. I don't know if you remember that, but
I do remember. I didn't know that you were somehow, had that as a claim to fame, but man, I bet that was a whirlwind.
Well, it was a good claim to fame because I was asked to kind of do something that would have been shady, and I of course said no. And then about a year later, it came out on the phone call, and it looked good for me, but it didn't look so good for our governor at the time. But anyway, yeah, I retired in 2015, and there's a group of citizens that came up to me. When I retired, I was the acting commander of troopers in Southeast, so I really covered trooper duties from Yakutat all the way to Metlakatla. Supervised many trooper posts, and so anyway, some citizens came up to me and they said, "Hey, we'd really like you to run. We like your politics. We like the fact that you're really engaged in the community." And so I kind of figured, well, I served my country, serve my state, maybe it's time to serve the local community. And so I ran in 2016, got elected to the borough assembly, did a tour on the assembly. And then 2019, I got elected as mayor just a couple months before COVID. And I'm currently finishing up my first term. I'm up for re-election this fall.
Nice. Are you running again this fall?
I am going to run again.
Is the Ketchikan Borough Gateway Borough set up as like a strong mayor or weak mayor politics?
It's weak mayor, but I always feel that a mayor has informal power as well.
Yeah.
So I don't really like being put in the box that, they try to put you in sometimes when they say, well, you're a weak mayor, just go cut the ribbons and kiss the babies, that kind of thing. I think you can do a lot with a plan. You can do a lot with a letter. You can do a lot with a meeting. So, I've really tried to expand the boundaries. And I personally think that the Ketchikan Borough has expanded to the point where they really need a full-time mayor and advocate to work with the state, work with the federal government, bring those dollars in.
Yeah, it's a borough your size would probably benefit from a strong mayor. And for folks that are listening, it's not a derogatory term. It's kind of how they describe the difference between a mayor who's the chief administrative officer, which they call a strong mayor of a borough or a city. In this case, it's mostly boroughs in Alaska. And then a weak mayor, which is the term, I don't know why it's the term, but it's the term for mayors that are elected officials that are on the assembly, but they act as the role mayor and ceremonies. And Mayor Dial, if anybody's following him, can see just pretty easily that he goes above and beyond most weak mayor responsibilities, as you should. I think it's one of those things where it's a huge responsibility. And man, have you ever voted? Has the borough ever voted on turning it into a different kind of management style?
Not that I'm aware of, and it's kind of one of those things. It's just always been that way, so I think that's why it still is that way. But if you look back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and compare it to now, I mean, we're seeing just the whole landscape of Ketchikan has been reinvented many times over. And so anyway, I like I said, I'm not going to be confined to the box. I'm going to work outside the box.
Yeah.
We're going to do what we need to do for Ketchikan.
So what is it about Ketchikan you love? It's a very unique place. It's beautiful. I've been there a couple of times, and it's it has a taco time, which is very prestigious, which is like one of the best Mexican food restaurants in the lower 48. You also have a mall. You also have the coolest, one of the coolest waterfronts. I'm sure there's more to love to Ketchikan than just those three things. What is it for you that made you call Ketchikan home right now?
Well, like I had said previously, I got a chance to really visit the communities all over the state, all the way from Aleutian all the way up to the North Slope. And the thing that I really like about Ketchikan, it's a town of doers. It's a town where if the power plant broke down, or if there was some major incident, some natural disaster, the people would really come together, and there's enough people that would be able to come together and fix things and take care of things. And when I worked in Western Alaska as a trooper, some of those communities they're a little depressing in that they're really so dependent upon the state government, the federal government, outside agencies to really fix things, maintain things, And so I just really liked that can-do attitude of Ketchikan, how there's people here that can build anything. There's a guy here that took a tank for me and actually made it street legal and put a motor in it.
That's amazing.
A fabricator, right? A guy that would be world-class fabricator who was able to do those kind of things. So it's just a town of just really good people that are hardworking. And then on top of all of that, it's the banana belt of the state. So it's really about the warmest place in the state in the winter. And I really like that too. So
that's awesome. Well, you've had one term of assembly under your belt, one term of mayor, and hopefully another term as mayor. What are a couple accomplishments that you've been able to pull off since you've been there? And tell us about them and why you're proud of it.
Yeah. So talking about how you can get out of that box they try to put you in. So back in 2017, I I went to the borough with a plan to actually elevate our borough issues, our policy issues, all the way to the White House. And I remember the comment at the time was, well, we've never done that before. And I said, well, it doesn't hurt to try. So I developed this plan. I wrote these letters to officials in DC. And then the next thing I know, we got invited to the White House. So we were able to jump ahead of all of those different agencies that were telling us no for different topics that were important to the community. We took our issues all the way to the White House. And not only did we take them the first time, but we wound up getting invited back. And then as we kept getting invited back to the White House, we really developed those contacts where I could send somebody a text at the White House and get a response back within half an hour. And it allowed us to turn a bunch of no's into a bunch of yeses. And we wound up not only saving the community millions, but we actually brought millions into the community in new funding. So for example, we had this big fight with FEMA over, they wanted to impose all these different flood standards in the community, which would have cost our citizens millions. We've been able to delay that for years. Every year we delay that, it saves us millions. We've been able to bring millions into this community for we have a big NOAA dock project that's being constructed right now. So, and we previously, NOAA was telling us that, we're not going to build a dock there. We're not going to put fair weather there, which is a research vessel, even though decades ago, Congress dictated that vessel was supposed to be in Ketchikan. So, this is something I'm really proud of because we just took everything to the top. We just cut out the middleman. We went to the top. The Trump administration was really supportive of small communities. They had us back many times. Got a chance to meet the vice president, and those kind of things. Just huge successes for the community.
Yeah, it's a lot of those things add up over time, and you get a NOAA doc, you get a this, you get a that. Next thing you know, you've been able to not only save millions of dollars, like you just said, but also bring in millions of dollars. So that's something to be proud of. And, to have to go from a small town, Alaska, that the White House maybe didn't even know existed, to being able to text the White House is a pretty awesome accomplishment. So nice work. I think it will benefit your community in the short and long term. So what are you going to be working on this next year? I know that, one of the things that people like about you is you're not fearful of the media. You're not fearful of being, politically correct in this world. You stand up for what you believe in with respect and with professionalism. And I think people really enjoy that. Is that going to play into any plans you got for this next year when we live in the woke, the most woke time in our life? Or just give us some of your thoughts for what you're going to be working on this next year.
Right. So one of my main goals as the borough mayor is to really look at what other communities have done right and what other communities have done wrong, and try not to do those wrong things. So for example, many of us, we've been going to Seattle since we were little kids, and we see this transition in Seattle from this beautiful gem of a city to a place where you feel like you need to be carrying and wearing body armor down there to go. Yeah. And I don't want Ketchikan to become Seattle. And, unfortunately, I guess it's unfortunate and unfortunate. We see a lot of people moving to Ketchikan right now. I had a conversation with an individual from Seattle here a couple of weeks ago. Nice guy, but he was getting out of Seattle, came here, bought 2 houses and a piece of land. And that's great. We welcome them here and everybody else that wants to come here. But we want to make sure that the things we love about Ketchikan, we keep as Ketchikan. And you talk about the wokeness, and it's just incredibly divisive. And the one thing I've really been trying to get across to people, especially, during Pride Month, and I'll give that standard disclaimer. I have nothing against, the LGBT community, but the one thing that I really need to get across to people is we need to not be creating divisiveness where divisiveness did not previously exist, right? Where division did not previously exist. And I see that when government strays from its neutrality and then starts promoting and encouraging and supporting one side of the political spectrum, all it does is it just divides the citizens, and it just pits them against each other. And I tell people, if you want to see what that looks like, go watch an Anchorage Assembly meeting from 2021. It doesn't matter which one, just pick one and watch the public comment,
pick any assembly meeting.
Yeah, from 2021.
Yep.
They divided their community with mandates and with mask mandates and these type of things. And so anyway, I'm hoping to find that middle ground where we can just really respect each other and accept each other, but then also agree that we're not going to use government to be on this side of the political spectrum or this side, and we're just going to focus on the basics.
Well, it sounds like you've done a fairly good job about that. How, let's say if somebody's listening and maybe they've lived under a rock for a while in the nooks and crannies of the Ketchikan Gateway Borough, and they're trying to figure out how to make a difference in this crazy political world. How do you feel like somebody can still make a difference in small town politics? Somebody maybe with a full-time job, or somebody maybe that's retired and has never been involved before. What are some easy steps, practical steps that somebody could do in your neck of the woods to still make a difference in the political world?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing is you've got to show up, right? So government's run by the people that show up. So during this last fight that I was involved in, I had so many people call me and say, I support you. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep it up. And then they would add that, but, right? But I can't speak out. I can't help you because of my job or my family or, my friends. And so, the other side, they're willing to show up and they're willing to yell and they're willing to protest and they're willing to, hold the signs on the street. And so if one side doesn't and the other side does, if one side is just not involved because they're afraid that they might get socially shamed on Facebook or they might be called a name, we're going to see our community continue to slide toward that model like Seattle or Portland or LA. It's just going to keep going in that direction. So I would just say, for the people out there listening that, kind of like your town the way it is, and you don't want to see those problems in the lower 48 come to Alaska, you need to participate. You need to show up at the meetings. You need to speak during public comment. You need to write a letter. You need to be willing to take a lick or two and be called a bad name or two. Because that's the way that we make our community better. So I would just say, you got to be involved. And I know it might come with some sacrifices, but you have to be willing to do it.
Do you guys have service boards in your borough for folks to, like, somebody that's showing up and now they want to make even the next step and officially volunteer on a board? Do you guys have service boards in your borough?
We do. Yeah,
okay,
we have boards, we have committees. So, people are interested, they can contact the borough. We can let them know what's available. And, it could be something as small as their neighborhood. I mean, they're end of the island, they could be on a board to help with that, or they can be on a board for the local volunteer fire department or something like that. But yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So who's one of your heroes? It sounds like you've had quite the career. And I'm sure that you've had some hopefully good mentors over the years. Who's been one of your heroes and why? Okay,
so once again, this is probably where I'm going to say something that's not really politically correct, but I'm going to say Jesus is my hero. And the first time I went through a really difficult issue with the borough, stressed me out. It was like 2 months of attacks, people writing bad letters, people, phone calls, it was just ugly. A lot of pressure. And, I prayed about it a lot, and I really wanted to know, am I doing the right thing? And, I guess there's something if I can relay to the community, it would be this. If you ever want to know what the right side is, right? We don't pray that God's on our side. We pray that we're on God's side. But if you ever want to know what the right side is on an important world issue, all you really have to do is ask yourself, who does the world love and who does the world hate? If you can answer that question, then you can know what the right side of this issue is, because it's, and I'll even go through it right here. There's a there's a verse, and it basically says, if the world hates you, know that it hated me first. If you were of the world would love its own. But you're not of the world. I've chosen you out of the world. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. And I think if you can kind of keep those kind of things in perspective, and realize that all things work out for the good, right? For those that love the Lord, you can be strong, and you could be an effective leader in your community. And so that's kind of how I view things, and I really, my faith is important to me. It really helps guide me and helps keep me on the right track, and it works.
That's awesome. Everybody needs a little Jesus in their life, probably a little more Jesus in our lives, because that'll help solve a lot of our problems. He is the peacemaker and the definition of love. So that's pretty awesome. I love that you and Jamie Allard have the same hero. When she was on the show, she said that
I didn't know that.
Jesus was her hero as well. So
right on.
You're in good company with Jamie Allard, and it's tough sticking to your convictions. I think it's awesome that you've been able to hold your own and stick to your convictions. And I do know that it's got to come with a price, right? I know that it comes with just nasty emails and phone calls and people assuming you're a horrible person, but I do want to encourage you that people are paying attention, that do support you. And I see, just the Must Read Alaska crowd, they really appreciate the stuff you're doing. So if that gives you any sort of positive motivation, let it be. It's people do see you, and they notice the awesome work you're doing. So kudos to you. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Ketchikan? Just while we got you on here, I got one last question for you, but I wanted to just give you an opportunity to share anything you'd like about Ketchikan, or anything that we missed. The podium is yours.
Thank you so much. I can tell you one thing we're kind of working on right now is we're really trying to prepare for the fall. I think a lot of us kind of feel like something's a little off, like it's the calm before the storm, like something major is going to happen before the midterms. I just have that feeling. We see inflation going up. We see the potential for a world food crisis. So, one thing we're working on here locally is we had the governor in town recently. We pitched a plan for him for an emergency community food supply, kind of like what we used to see during the Cold War era with civil defense.
Yep.
So we're doing that. I'm encouraging citizens to get out, harvest firewood, prepare for, if heating oil's $7-8 a gallon, you're not going to be able to buy a lot of it. So let's start looking at alternate heating sources. So we're really just trying to prepare for, what may come this fall. And I would just really encourage other Alaskans to really consider that as well. Don't just think that everything is back to normal and everything's going to be perfect, because there's a lot of warning signs out there that, we may have some problems ahead. So let's prepare.
So I read, I think yesterday on our site, actually, that the local Ketchikan Republican censored former Governor Sarah Palin. I think that is hilarious, because she is, if folks don't remember, she's the one who tokened the bridge to nowhere and kind of killed the bridge to nowhere, which was essentially, Ketchikan, I think, has the 7th biggest airport in Alaska. And I believe you all have to take a ferry to the airport, which has got to just be super annoying. Do you have any thoughts on the local Republican Party censoring former Governor Sarah Palin?
Well, so the whole thing with the bridge is kind of a sensitive topic for us, because we really got so close to it. In fact, they even built.
It was budgeted in. It was in the budget.
Right. And they built like 3 miles of road over on the airport island. So, and it's dead forever now. It's never coming back, especially now that they took that money and they put it into expanded ferry service. So I think there's, there might be some hard feelings down here still with
understandably.
Yeah. So,
well,
but
I thank you for coming on our show, Mayor Dial, and I wish you luck in your election. I hope you win. Are you running unopposed, or you got some competition? What's that field look like?
It really hasn't even opened yet. I'm just trying to get a jump start on the process.
Yeah.
So I don't know of anybody else that's running, but I would be highly surprised if other people didn't run. So so I guess it is what it is. It'll probably all really kick off in earnest around August.
Yeah. Well, we wish you luck. We thank you for the work you're doing, and we thank you for joining us on the Must Read Alaska show. This episode will be on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon Prime or Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora. The list goes on. Anywhere that you can find a podcast, you'll be able to find this episode and download it. I actually have Representative Ron Gillum in the next 30 minutes is going to be on the Must Read Alaska show. So we're going to do a double header today. Ron is going to be talking about, Representative Gillum is going to be talking about what's going on in his neck of the woods, Kenai Soldotna, but also the drag queen show that happened in front of kids this last week at the Soldotna Creek Park. So he's going to be giving us his thoughts on that. You don't want to miss out on that. Tune in literally 30 minutes. I'll be back on. So until then, from somewhere in Alaska, I'm John Quick signing off. Again, thank you so much, Mayor Dial, for joining us. Keep up the good work. Thanks.